It is now clear that we have a politician in the Indian roster of politicians who will go to any length and at any cost to pitchfork himself in the mind space of people like you and me. It is now clear, after the raising of the issue of Kashmir Files in the Delhi Assembly, that Mr. Kejriwal will invent, doctor, concoct, cut and paste, and present alternate doctored reality of events to dominate conversation and discussion and foist, as it were, always in our consciousness, his version of events. It is now clear that Mr. Kejriwal will play around with the truth as one plays football on the field, kicking it around from all corners of the ground to simply land a goal on the other side. And finally, it is now clear that we never have had a politician so cunning and desperate and ambitious to grab power at any cost and fulfill his ambition to somehow land the top job in the country. And the irony of it all is that after the win in Punjab, one had hoped that the man would leave his disruptive ways and settle down to provide a mature alternative to the BJP in the country. But the base and basic instinct of the man has belied all hopes. By his ludicrous charges on the Kashmir Files and the subsequent storm in a kettle by his minions of a so-called laughable assassination plot against him, he has reminded us once again that even the proprietorship firm of the Gandhis, called the Congress Party, has far more redeemable features than the mountain of lies called AAP is or can ever hope to be. Seriously, how else can you explain that after achieving a rousing win in Punjab and assumedly settling down to help the new Chief Minister of Punjab to effectively govern the state, Arvind Kejriwal goes and stirs up an ugly controversy which puts even the shock value of the Ukraine war to shame? Seriously, what explains that? Who in their right mind would take the focus away from what happens next in Punjab to a manufactured, ugly, stitched up, cobbled controversy introduced to gather maximum eyeballs and exposure on television channels? How does one explain his theatrics on Kashmir Files? Is there something more to the attention-seeking dramatics? Let us explore that. But first, a warm welcome to all viewers of the CAA show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis, and my name is Juggi Bhasin. The CAA show is a show for folks who are looking for something different in the news and current affairs space, which we intend to provide. All you have to do to join us is to press the big red subscriber button on your screen. Subscription is, of course, completely free. So why does Arvind Kejriwal try to manipulate every situation, even when it does not warrant it? And why could he not control himself so soon after the Punjab election results? The answer lies in the simple fact that despite all the tall talk and sharing of stage at the Punjab cabinet swearing in, Mr. Kejriwal feels shaded, almost overwhelmed by the popularity of Bhagwant Mann. Please go to YouTube and see the clips of the cabinet swearing in. In that entire function, Arvind Kejriwal is unusually quiet, grave looking, no smiles on his face, in fact looking quite wretched. He knows that it is only a matter of time before his so-called drunk prodigy will overtake him in popularity, that is, if that already hasn't happened in Punjab. Mr. Kejriwal also knows that deep within, that the politics of disruption, playing Robin Hood in Delhi by making some essential services affordable for the lowest strata but taxing the middle and upper middle class, will not work in Punjab. And what will certainly not work in Punjab is playing the victim card, which he so effectively does in Delhi vis-a-vis the central government. Punjab is not Delhi, and it will have none of that. The state faces real problems, and Arvind Kejriwal's solution mix of upgrading government schools, opening mohalla clinics, which all but failed miserably during the COVID pandemic, and spending lots of taxpayers' money on advertisements and sponsored slots on television where you are forced to always see his face moralizing, well, that kind of solutions mix will not work in Punjab. Look at his first big initiative in Punjab, which borders on the infantile. He has, through MAN, promised doorstep ration delivery. Free rations in Punjab? Are you kidding me? This state is the granary bowl of India. It is wheat and food grain surplus. Punjab needs real jobs, the opening of industrial corridors, a solution to the drugs menace, and not a harebrained scheme which no one has any need to avail of. All that Mr. Kejriwal can do in the name of governance is to give freebies, and that also at the expense of the middle class taxpayers. And free this and free that will not solve Punjab's endemic problems but only compound them. He knows all this, and already he is falling back on playing his time-tested card to escape responsibility and divert the public attention from the plethora of promises he has made in Punjab. And that, of course, is playing his famous victim card. He is already preparing the ground for it, and this is where his shock raising of the issue of Kashmir Files comes in. Does the elected chief minister of a state with powers less than that of a municipality have nothing better to do than raise a false flag issue? That is, divert the attention of the people from real governance and wade into communal matters by raking up an unseemly controversy? Did the genocide of Kashmiri Pandits not take place? Does not Vivek Agnihotri not have the right to highlight their suffering and show the terrible role of the perpetrators irrespective of their religious orientation? And what is Arvind Kejriwal really protesting about? How does the Prime Minister and the BJP enter the debate? How can a man so cynically tread roughshod over the feelings of a people who were looted and pillaged and raped and murdered? I'm surprised when people say he does not have any empathy for Kashmiri Pandits and the genocide they faced so many years back. When did he ever have any empathy for anyone? He has always used the suffering of the people for grandstanding, self-promotion and projection, and for furtherance of his overweening ambition. And that is the thing with ambitious over projectors. They have so immersed themselves in their own self-congratulatory flights that at some point, like Icarus, their wings are burnt and they plummet below only to discover that there is no safe ground they can land on. Punjab, more than Delhi, will be the test case of how high Arvind Kejriwal can fly. His wings could get burnt, but even if he survives, I can't escape the feeling that Bhagwant Mann will walk away with all the credit, with him having then no use for his so-called mentor. Interesting days ahead. And so therefore, on this note, I come to the end of this episode of the CAA show. Hope you really enjoyed this particular episode. And if you do like our show, do subscribe to us. And on this note, it's goodbye and cheers from my end.